Well, greetings, and thanks for joining us for another episode of Lightbulb Moments, episode number 162. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to check out past episodes. This is also a podcast, so whether you're watching this on YouTube, whether you're listening to the podcast, or whether you're with us live, we're glad you're with us. I'm Tom Kuhn. I'm host and curator of Lightbulb Moments. And a light bulb moment is a moment of sudden realization, enlightenment, or inspiration. Remember, you can't start a fire without a spark. So hopefully somewhere in these sessions, you find a spark, find your light bulb moment to help you bring you closer to what's next for you. At Qnity, we're here to help you go from what's confusing, overwhelming, and complicated to a clearer path towards prosperity. And to prosper, to remember to get a high return on investment on the three currencies we have in life: attention, time, and money. And thanks for spending your precious time with us today. We love hearing from you, whether it's a topic, whether it's a guest idea. So certainly use the chat. Be chatty in the chat if you like. And also, you should check out recent episodes. I'll get to some of those in a moment. Today's guest will be Dr. Pepper Pastor, who's the founder of Purpose and Policy. I am very excited about this episode. I think we might run out of time on this one. So anyway, last guest was 2 weeks ago, Dave Murray of the DeJulius Group. He's a VP and a recent author. What a great episode. I've known John DeJulius for many, many years, but Dave has been part of the Julius Group for over 11 years, and what a great session with him. We've also had a couple of recent tech series. One was with Denise Boudreau, Director of Sales for Salon Biz, and in particular went through something called Stat Maps. And then we also did another one on this tech series from Jocelyn Miller of Boulevard, who gave some great insights on client experience and some other great nuggets. Submit a light bulb moment of your own on our website, or again, put something in the chat if you have an idea. I do want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Lightheart Sanders, Green Circle, and Forest. We're grateful to all those organizations for sponsoring this forum and helping to make it possible. Upcoming dates, we have 2 workshops coming up very soon. It's not too late to register. We have a growth workshop coming up on September 10th. And we have a profit workshop coming up on September 9th. Both are in Minneapolis, very close to the airport, easy to get in and out. These are updated versions of both of these programs. I personally will be involved with teaching the profit program, which I normally don't do. I'll be doing collaboration with Candice Gliato. And then Candice Gliato will be teaching the growth workshop. So certainly these are some mini events. We've already got some great people attending, and we'd love to have you. We also have a Succession Masterclass coming up, which I teach a couple times a year with some other guest teachers. That's coming up October 7th, also in Minnesota. We've also got some programs in November in Austin, Texas. More about those in another week. Check out episodes of Money 02, which is Aaron's podcast. Kind of cool. I'm going to give ourselves a little shout out here. I normally don't like to do this, but both of us were nominated for Podcast of the Year, which is pretty cool. Hers is super cool. She also has some great guests, so check those out. I think she's got, I don't know how many episodes, but a lot. I do want to talk about something and announce something that we have seeded over many, many weeks on Lightbulb Moments, and that is the formal opening of our next and second big study this year, which is a P&L benchmark study. We are going live on this next week. We've gone to great lengths to make this process super simple, super quick, much simpler and much quicker than the compensation projects that we've done very recently. Why this matters, obviously, profitability is a key metric. And there's, salon profitability is very challenged, and having every single edge you can is important. There is a lack of comprehensive data on profitability and in industry neutral studies, brand neutral, et cetera. It's difficult to really benchmark your business with old data because a lot of it is old and it's pre-pandemic. And so This is a tremendous collaboration. We've got some great sponsors. So sponsors behind this program that have already signed up are Wella, Aveda, Boulevard, Zenoti, 2 to 10, Neil. So we've got some, not only do we have some great sponsors, but we've got great analysts. We have independent CPA firm, and then we also have academic experts in research, the ones that were involved in the chain study from the University of Texas. So this is a whole nother level. This is a formal study. There'll be an open and close period. It'll be a matter of submitting Excel sheets to the CPA firm and a short questionnaire, followed by a more in-depth questionnaire that would be phase 2. And every company participating will get a scorecard categorized as best possible with the category of business they're in, number of locations, et cetera. And the submission period, again, is opening next week. We've got all the things figured out. It's hard to make things simple. And everybody loves simplicity, but simplicity requires some extra effort. And we really made this super, super simple. So anyway, stay tuned. We'll continue to encourage participation. And then we're going to be very excited once the findings come out, which will be, I estimate this will be in October, second half of October and November, when we're able to report back to you what we came up with. My light bulb moment this week really relates to, it's going to tie very well into the conversation I'm going to have with Dr. Pepper here. And it has to do with some insights on the big project that we've done over the last year studying compensation for chains. Remarkable, remarkable project. Over 25,000 data points. Most all of the major chain employers participated in one way, shape, or form. And there's some very, very rich findings on compensation and many other matters. It's really this report, as well as other compensation studies, as well as other indicators that I want to have a conversation with Pepper about. I've long been an advocate for a more data-driven approach to how much money you can make in the salon industry. On Saturday, I happened to be in the chair with a new stylist here in the Twin Cities. And I asked her how she got into the field, and she was considering dental hygiene, and she was considered styling. And I said, well, did you get encouragement to become a hairstylist? She said, no. Did you get encouragement to be a dental hygienist? She said, yes. Which one costs more to get licensed in? Hygienist, which one makes more money? And she said, well, I actually think what I'm doing now makes more money, but it's not the story. But, you know, so I've long been sort of on a soapbox on this one in terms of what a more accurate look at earnings in the beauty industry. And this report with chains does validate that the numbers published by the Bureau of Labor Statistics are $10 per hour off. So it continues to validate that earnings based upon data is far higher than those reported by the government, and there's some flaws, and we go through that in the report. But there's two other things about this report and two other things about the studies that we've been doing that I just can't get out of my mind. Two things. One is longevity at the current job. What happens is when people get to year 5, longevity drops like a rock when you look at the data in terms of someone staying at the same job. Also, there's an indicator from Talent Match that says the average length of employment for a service provider is 2.8 years. And then the other data point that is of high interest to me is the low number of hours worked. If we can move the metric for how long someone stays at their job, even a little bit, if we can move the metric on hours worked, we have massive growth opportunity. Pepper, welcome to the conversation. How are you?
Hi, Tom. It's great to be here with you today.
Let me do a little bit of an intro on you, okay?
Sure.
I love the intro. So you're an organizational psychologist, and You love working with entrepreneurs, creatives, VC firms, tech startups. Your work in neuroscience adds unique component to work behavior, using neuroscience to guide the development of executive functioning. Specializes in developing high trust cultures, assessments, and analysis, talent development, team dynamics, cultural and emotional intelligence. Super interesting also about Pepper is that she has worked at L'Oreal, GHD, Wella, been involved with Aveda, owned and operated a salon of your own in New York City. And you're very rare in someone that has really crossed over between highly credible academic research and credentials with the beauty industry experience. And you also are, you also teach at Harvard. How are
Yes,
you?
I'm good. Thank you for that. That made me sound important, even though it's all on paper, right? But thank you.
Well, I'll share with our audience how we met. You're based in Austin, Texas, and it was our Lightbulb Moments celebration, and you came up and introduced yourself, just signed up because you knew that we were going to be there, and we just had an opportunity to just meet very quickly, face to face, and we've since then had several conversations, which I've thoroughly enjoyed.
Yes, yes. And it's about taking a risk, right? No matter what you do. And I kind of love that. I just showed up and I said, I need to meet Tom. And I knew you're going to be there. So I came to say hi.
Now we just can't stop talking to each other
Yeah.
about specific opportunities. So you said something after we got to know each other a little after Phil. This was probably 2 months ago or something. You said, Tom, there's more research done in other countries about why people leave their jobs, not in general, but in the beauty industry than in the US. And I thought,
Correct.
you got to be kidding me. And what would be some of these countries that have done more research, more thorough research to fully understand why someone would leave their job? What countries would be examples of that?
Yeah, so they're looking at workforce analysis. I see a lot out of Australia, some out of the UK, not as much, but the majority that I see come out of Taiwan, Korea, Southern Asian companies. And I don't know whether or not I'm making an assumption here, but I believe this to be true because in Asian countries, I believe the government helps fund a lot of these studies,
Yeah.
one. And secondly, in those countries, the structure is a little bit different in the sense that, yes, there are small salons, just like we have here, but a lot of the salons, like I know in Japan, in Korea, they're very large chains where they're having 400 plus locations. And
Hmm.
so a lot of they have a lot more resources than what we have. The other piece about it is that the work that you're looking at, the work that we're interested in, this is done day in and day out in other fields. It's just very limited in our field.
I had no idea. It really was a shock effect to me. And, it's very probable and possible that a large employer might have done their own in-house research, But in terms of some reliable data type study to get really to the heart of the matter, it just still baffles me that it doesn't exist over here.
No, it does too. And I mean, I have looked tireless, and I think every time we talk, I'm like, well, let me go back and check. um, and so it was fun, and I know we'll kind of chat about that a little bit today. Is that I did finally find one study from the United States, and it was a dissertation for a doctoral student. Yes, by George Christensen. Um, and this was probably the best study I have seen, hands down. It was almost 200 pages, extremely robust. So this was one of the first exciting studies that I've seen in our industry that really gave some great indications of what perhaps is going on.
Before we get to that, I'm going to come back to this in a moment. here's a study that was done, I believe, in Taiwan. But again, this was done a while ago. So this was a study that was specifically on reduction of turnover in the hair salon industry. So, but let's go back to the one that you mentioned here.
Yeah. But to your point on that last study, it's wildly specific in what we're looking to learn about here in the US, but we just don't have the resources in terms of other research being done at this point.
Well, we might have to do something about that.
Yeah. That's what it sounds like.
So, would you describe what the hell is a gaggle?
Well, a gaggle, so this researcher, he determined this, and I don't believe it was something that he actually came up with on his own, but a gaggle is when a group of employees leave a business all at once.
Hmm.
And what's interesting about this is it is very unique to the beauty industry. You see similar things happen in many industries. It's a walkout, essentially. It's a walkout. But the difference in other industries is those walkouts are a bluff. More than likely, the walkouts are a bluff. You see this in the union. This group of people, we want this. We want, XYZ in the business. So we're testing you. Well, that's not what happens in the beauty industry. The gaggle, everyone leaves, right? There's a whole group of people that leaves, and it's a bit of a phenomenon. And what is so powerful about this gaggle that is so different to the beauty industry versus other industries is not only do the employees leave, but their customers leave with them. You don't see that in other, you could have a grocery store, a group of employees leave, but the customers are still coming to buy groceries at that store. When a gaggle happens, those salon clients leave with them. So it's a loss of employees and it's a loss of revenue. So it's a very big hit for any salon owner who has suffered from that.
So I did go through the 200 plus page report, and I haven't read it word for word. It's quite academic. And but it was really interesting way to describe different things related to the gaggle and how it, affects the salon owner, which is fear, bitterness, anger, brings in some of the emotions into it, and also looks at it at the point of view of the person that was part of a gaggle.
Yes.
Um, I'm just letting that sink in a little bit. So, and what you're saying is in other industries, the idea of a walkout is used more as a threat as far as a bargaining chip. And what's unique about salons is it's not just a bluff. I mean, they're like gone in like a minute, it seems like.
Yeah, and it's already pre-planned. It may, it may happen abruptly, and for the owner it may feel like, whoa, I did not see this coming. But for those that are involved in leaving, they have had to do some due diligence to collect their clients, to get their belongings, whatever is required for them to actually leave. So there is some planning involved with that.
It's not a coup because a coup takes over the leadership and takes over the existing environment. This is an exit. I do get a kick out of looking up the definition of the word gaggle because it means a flock of geese. And then informal is a disorderly or noisy group of people. So that's really what it means in slang. Um, this article or this dissertation, did it go through potential solutions on how to prevent a walkout?
It's not clear on how, well, let me say this. It's not only how to prevent it. Yeah, you know what? Actually, it is on how to prevent it. Yes, I will say it is on how to, the author gave tips, towards the end, but it was also a looking back of if you do these things, it is going to be less likely. So therefore, that being, it will be preventative.
So that begs the question, what are those things? Now, just
Yeah.
time out for the listeners here. I don't want to put Pepper on the spot because this is a very recent discovered dissertation, and you didn't write it, so I'm not asking you to be the complete expert, and realize you probably haven't dug into it because it's only been very recent. But What are the conditions that help prevent a gaggle-driven walkout?
Yes, and I did do I created some highlights because what I read in this study was not a shock to me, especially after being a salon owner. I have known umpteen salon owners who have called me in tears when this has happened to them. And I've known friends of mine who have been part of these that, that they walked out. So let me share this first is what was wonderful about this study, not only the robust nature of how the researcher went about it. I did love that it was taken place all through Dallas, Fort Worth. So it was a Texas-based study. So that was nice. And so just to give listeners a compass of who was studied, if you picture salons in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and the study was done not only on salon owners, but on employees and independent salons, right? So it was both, it was all chain independent as well as commission-based salons. So top line, I just want to share with you the findings and why I thought this was significantly a powerful study. Was the findings were that a gaggle was most detrimental in salons that had under 10 employees. And we could clearly see why. Not only was it most detrimental, but it was more likely, it's highly likely that it was going to happen in a salon with under 10 employees. In franchise salons, because they only make up about 2% of the industry, the occurrence was much less significant. It happened less often. So that's interesting. And it just had a much less powerful impact. So the last point of why I found this was really important is because the study was done qualitatively. So what that means is questions were asked. So this researcher interviewed people. So they interviewed all of these hairstylists. So it wasn't done. You didn't take a survey. If you take a survey, that's quantitative. So I'm just answering, are you likely to leave? Answer yes, no, probably, right? That's not how this was done. This was done of deep conversations of what had happened. And that's extremely powerful. So I'm going to pause on that before I get to the tips and let you let that
You're,
sink in
I'm
a
gonna,
minute.
you just keep going. Yeah.
Okay. And I want to share the tips, but I want to circle back to some of the powerful points in the study that also go back to the study that you created, Tom, because we do see some unique correlations between what we're finding here. So essentially, if we want to prevent a gaggle, a walkout from happening, is I isolated 3 key things. And these were training in the salon needs to be specialized and standardized. So both specialized and standardized. So what does that mean? Specialized is that people have their own unique qualities or their own unique attributes. It doesn't mean that they only do balayage, or they're compartmentalized. It's that they have a unique point of difference, but that the training that they all receive is standardized. So when I picture this in my mind and I'm a client, I come in, I can assume that all the stylists might have different personalities, might dress differently, come from different backgrounds, but I can expect the level of quality and the training and the service that I receive from this service provider is going to be very, very much the same across the board. So I'm going to have a lovely experience. So that's one. The second is something to really empower the business owner, and that is to do assessments, to do surveys. I'm here, I can help you. We have so many tools that are free. Qnity has tools for you, right? So you can hop on a Survey Monkey. So what does an assessment look like? A job satisfaction or a motivation survey. So just get used to maybe quarterly, like asking, 5 or 6 questions, like, are you happy here? What would, increase your productivity? What could we do differently? Just asking these questions are very simple. And I know some wonderful salon owners out there, I'm not going to call you out, that already do this. And it really contributes to them being very, very successful salon owners. So they know what's happening within their employee base. And lastly, is to increase emotional intelligence.
Mm.
And I want to share a little bit about this. I am my own plug for myself is I am a certified coach in emotional intelligence. I do evaluations of people's emotional intelligence. You can go online and do numerous resources about how to build your emotional intelligence. But what I want to share with you is that emotional intelligence needs to be built within all the team members in the salon and with the salon owner. It doesn't work if it's just one or the other. It has to be everybody, right? Because then you have these wonderful high performing team members, and the salon owner is operating in a different level and a different state of thinking, and so you're going to have some tension there, and vice versa. And the last point I want to share with you is that when we think of emotional intelligence, just to clarify with people, what is emotional intelligence? Emotional intelligence is not one thing. It's made up of about 26 different attributes, right? So it's 26 different qualities, skills that you innately have. And we are all going to be greatly different in that. And just as an example, like could be, how resilient are you? Are you a naturally happy person or a pessimistic person? How timely are you? Like what does time look like for you, right? So these kind of become these cultural variables of not only how can you grow and develop, but what is it also like to be around you? And that's what's so unique about emotional intelligence is it's how do I manage myself? And then how do I perceive how others take me in an environment? So it's very powerful.
You've done a really, really good job of distilling that into a digestible solution. And it's not only about preventing a walkout and a gaggle, but it's also about increasing longevity. And I'm going to summarize it, okay, just to make sure that's imprinted to me. And, I love that you made it 3. It's not 5, it's not 8. It's, so here's what I heard from you. Training, an emphasis in training that builds consistency and quality. So it's not a la carte, so it's not specific to one service provider. And so the salon, if someone leaves, that clients are comfortable that they'll be able to jump right back in because they'll get equivalent or better service because there's training, there's consistency, number one, correct?
Yes.
Number 2 is taking the pulse through periodic, not like once every few years, periodic pulse checks to find out what the state of mind is. Are people happy? What are they thinking about? And then number 3 is a bigger bucket, and that is the increase in emotional intelligence, which is looking inside and then also how that manifests into action. So did I summarize it okay?
Yes, absolutely correct. And I would like to add one of my own because it is a pet peeve of mine in our industry because it's common in every industry I know other than ours. It's not easy to do because of the circumstances around it, but for salon owners to start making a habit of doing exit strategy interviews or some sort of survey, even if no matter how hurt you are, if you could send a survey via email, like, I'm angry you left, but can you fill this out for me? Because you want to know why people left.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't feel good, even if they say awful, mean things, maybe there's something tangible in there that could be a point of development for your salon and for your team members.
Yeah. So I'm optimistic that this is a digestible way to approach longevity within an existing job. And, you know, what we haven't talked about here is those that are um, leaving the industry.
Yes.
And I don't know that that's covered in any of that research. And it might be outside the scope. I mean, because, well, you were going to say something. I'll let you share.
No, continue. Yeah, I'll remember.
Well, I'm just kind of processing out loud here. None of these sessions are rehearsed here, so I'm hearing some of this like our audience, even though I've had read the report and all of that, or a good chunk of it. So I'm just digesting it. And I'm just thinking to myself that I certainly think that these are very proactive steps. And I think we maybe if I move the conversation to why people leave the industry, we might be getting off track because that's probably a whole nother set of scenarios. So I'm going to refrain from why people leave the industry unless maybe you have some comments about that.
No, I mean, let's bring it together, right? So and this is why it's so enjoyable to be a psychologist and how we're looking at this from the scope of human behavior. So when we look at our industry, and I was never able to pull or find the data that I had found this, but it was some years ago. It might have been PBA or for the Professional Beauty Industry Association, I'm sorry, or it was through a national database, was that the lifespan of a hairdresser was 7 years. 7 years. Okay. That's a very short amount of time. I've been in the industry for 25 years. Tom, you got what, like, a good amount of time in the industry, right? So 7 years is not a lot of time. Now, when we look at that 7 years, and we know from your study that there's an exit, and correct me with this, I believe your study was 2 to 5 years, that there was some movement, whether it was they left the industry or they left the business. Was that correct? That was 2 to 5 years?
Yeah, it would have been left their current job. We don't know if they left the industry.
Correct. Okay. So we don't know where they went, but we know it was a 2 to 5 year period.
Yeah.
In addition, so I'm painting a picture for you all. The individuals that demographically come into the industry that you're measuring are under the age of 26 years old. So let's say, whatever they did at 25, they finished beauty school, they came into the industry, and now we have this 2 to 5 year span of time that they're developing their talents, they're becoming a better hairdresser, they're making more income, right? So that gets us to about 30 years old. And there's going to be something really interesting that came from this study of what are called KWs. So KWs are knowledge workers, and they were defined as having tacit and explicit knowledge. So what does that mean? Tacit and explicit knowledge is they became very skillful in the technique. So they're excellent hair cutters in this period of time of development. And not only that, they become excellent with maybe their emotional intelligence, with their bedside manner, with building the clientele, with being a great employee, right? So they become knowledge workers. They're not just bodies that show up anymore when you first got them in that first year. That first 2 years, maybe they were just doing blow dries, or they were in some sort of training program. So we're now talking about people that by the time they're 30 years old, they get out of this training program, they have clients that love them, maybe they built up a social media following. They are now what I would consider a high potential individual. And now this individual, if they leave, they will hurt you, right? Because now they've developed. But when they get to this point is when they will leave you. They're not leaving you when they're in the newbie stage, when they're being developed by you. They're leaving you once they're developed. So what is going on there? That's where the picture is drawn. I have a few tips from my own studies, my own research, as well as the research from the study that we're referring to. And that is a few things. First, these individuals, when you're a high performing individual, not when you're just developing, when you become high performing, it takes a step up. And I can tell you this to be true from my own experience from being a global artist for L'Oreal. Once you reach a certain level, you get a little egotistical, and who manages you matters very much, because someone needs to manage me who's much better than me, who I can look up to and respect. And that's just, I'm being very honest there, right? So a manager, you have to have great managers. You've got to have a manager that these individuals can look up to, can respect, can admire, and that this manager can lead them. So that's one. And I have 4 nuggets for you. So that's the first. The second nugget is what matters most to these individuals is that they're satisfied, they have job satisfaction, that their environment, they're in a good environment, they have resources, they're recognized for all their contributions, and that the environment that they are in is ethically sound. People are very sensitive to if things just don't feel right and are not aligned with their values and their ethics. It's huge. Right. So that's also looking when you're the owner, looking at your own behavior and looking at what's going on in your culture. Because sometimes you might be very aligned with those employees, but something's happening in your salon culture that's not in alignment with that. And that part is kind of goes in with the third is that 40% of the motivation of employees to stay, to do better work, are extrinsic. So 41% are extrinsic. What does that means is only 41% relates to the money that they get, right? Relates to financial contributions. So you've got about 59, 60% is these other factors that I'm talking about. So my point is that it matters more of the environment, the culture that they're in, than the money that they're making. That's what matters more. And the last little nugget, what this research came out from 2012, so it's a little dated, but it did come from the beauty industry, a researcher named Ford, is that 83% of our stylists are seeking outside training. And it doesn't mean that it's because you're not giving them training, but it could be more convenient. And we know that to be true. If you see someone, the colors weighed in between, and they're on Instagram looking at, some cool color formulas, right? So we know that to be true. How are you, Tom?
No. This is great. I mean, I'm like taking notes here. The last one, I think your first 3 tips, manager, and there's a lot of supporting data on that about not just in the beauty industry, but number one reason people leave their jobs because of their manager type thing. So totally get that. The environment that they're in, and the behaviors, the culture, ethics, all of that makes total sense. Your third point was really about intrinsic motivators are more important than extrinsic. So these are the feelings, these are the not tangible things like money. But the last one, unpack that one a little bit more. You said 83% are seeking outside training. That's the one unpack that a little more.
Yeah, so outside training being that they're not relying 100% on what training comes to the salon. So let's say as a salon owner, maybe quarterly, maybe more than quarterly, you have some wonderful educators come in for them. Maybe they love that training. It wasn't that they did or did not like the training that you brought in, but they are seeking additional training. So they want access to resources of more training. And that could be a simple thing. That could be something that you print out or you have in an internal website of, hey, we found this, or you put this database together of tons of training, free training, videos, on YouTube that are wonderful, or offerings from different companies or kind of solopreneur educators.
You left us with a lot here. You left us with, frankly, a lot more than I expected that we would cover today. That's a good thing.
Yes, I do want to wrap a little bow on it, right? So just to close up everything that we were talking about, because when I got into this, I mentioned human behavior and I mentioned the developmental age of the stylist. So I'm going to close with you with this, is that when these stylists came to us, they're under 26 years old. When this transition is now happening, maybe they're closer to 30 years old. Think about who you are and what you know to be true when you're a 30-year-old. it's very, very different than when you're in your 20s. So maybe people, have gotten married. Maybe a parent is sick. Maybe they have children now. Maybe they're looking to buy a home or an apartment. So these factors, I truly believe, this is anecdotal, so I haven't run a study on it, but my assumption to be true on human behavior and adult development is they're looking for different things. Their needs have changed. And are we meeting these needs?
Wow. Okay, part of it's due to age. Part of it's due, age, certain natural parts of the life cycle, a career path that you're at that pivotal point in your career. It reminds me when I was a multi-location salon owner myself and did a bunch of one-on-ones. I mean, we had like 400 people, and I would get out and I'd do these one-on-ones. And I really developed just this point of view. I haven't really shared this with many people. I think Michelle might know this, but I started to develop this sort of motivation quadrants. Hopefully I can remember them, and found that there's four general things that categorize in terms of career path, and one is money. And, money's the motivator. They're going to make the steps. They're going to make decisions based upon money. And I agree with you. That's not the majority. Number two is lifestyle, quality of life. Time's more important than money. Very driven by quality of life. Number three is frequently we saw people that wanted to add another hat in the business, wanted to focus a little bit more on giving back through education. And then the fourth motivator that I found very common too was the creative aspect. This person's motivated because we got more photo shoots. There's more opportunities for creative. There's a creative director. So I kind of bundled these together in this little mini model. I haven't shared that very much, but it's money, quality of life, education, or creative.
Yes. And what comes to mind, maybe there's something to be done with that, Tom, because it's powerful. And I would pair it with, I believe those four things to be true. And I also believe them to be true of our developmental stage, right? So our stage in life, because now I am set in my career, I'm making the money, now I can give back. But if you ask somebody who can't pay their bills each month, they don't have the luxury yet to be creative or to give back. So,
Yeah.
so there is a timeliness to this, and there are stages of adult development. And I work with a lot of individuals that are looking closer to retirement. This is not something we talk about a lot in the beauty industry and what is truly retiring and exiting looking like, but that's a different stage of development where you've now given back and you've given back so much. Like what is your legacy of what you're leaving? What does that look like? And how do you move forward with the ego attachment you've had to the industry? And, because we are we're important people as hairdressers. We get to talk to others and talk about ourselves all day long. And to remove that can be really scary. So I really look at it a lot as developmental stages of how people can contribute and how much they can contribute to those four motivations.
Wow, I'm going to make a declaration today to our audience that this will officially be part one.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I am
I'm seeing
hereby.
some hearts come up from our live audience members,
Yeah,
and thank you all for being here as well.
I'm hereby declaring that we're going to do a part two to this episode because I think that you're onto something. And I think that our work is moving in some parallel directions. And I think that there's solutions to these things. And again, sort of when I sort of teed this thing up to bring you, when it brought you to the mic and camera, it's how can we increase longevity? Longevity at their current area of employment and longevity in the industry. I think it's a massive, massive, massive opportunity. And if we have like a 3 or 4 part solution to it, And if we have a 3 or 4 part, you need to know and understand this too and change your mindset. And if we can create some data on this, because people do pay attention to data, and you're bringing a research skill that I think is fascinating. And I shared this with, frankly, a great research skill with our other 2 Austin-based researchers from the University of Texas. But what you have is you have the beauty industry experience. So we'll have a part 2. Will you accept my invitation to come back?
I accept. I accept this dance, Tom.
All right. All right, everybody, let's give a virtual round of applause to Dr. Pepper here.
Thank
And
you.
we do have a hand raise here. We do have a hand raise here. So I think that means I outdid myself today by bringing your work to attention. Well, thank you for that, Tracy. So somebody did raise their hand. If somebody does have a question, if somebody has a question, I'm trying to see if it's visible. I don't see the question.
Adriana has a question.
Adriana, you have a
Yes,
question?
Adriana has a question. Or she lowered her hand now.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway, let's give Dr. Pastor a virtual round of applause, and you will soon have your $1 million light bulb.
Oh, yay.
To indoctrinate you into the brain trust. What a great guest. Our work is in parallel with each other. You're doing phenomenal work. And I love how today you brought, in a very short amount of time, you were able to take a very complicated set of research and data and distill it into reasons and solutions. So very, very well done. It exceeded
Thank
my
you.
expectation today. So
Thank you. And I know we're together on this, and as an industry, we're together on this. And I think when we put all of our minds and talents together, we can really help move the needle and kind of solve some of these challenges we're all having.
awesome. All right. Well, thanks again. You have to tell me about your name.
Oh,
Is your first name, is it, I mean, I'm sorry, it's a bit of a
no,
tongue.
this is good. I get asked this a lot, and it directly relates to the beauty industry. So for those of you that don't know this story, I started my career in high school, and it was in the 90s. Wow, I said that out loud. And my name is Jennifer. And when I worked in the salon, the first salon I worked at, I was called a house girl. I was not even allowed to touch people. They hired me because I was a ballet dancer and I was very pretty, and they wanted someone pretty. And I modeled for them. And I had long dark hair. And so the owners would style my hair for all these shoots. So they wanted to have me on hand, but not to touch anybody. So I did all the towels and I mopped the floors. And sometimes clients just thought I was so sweet. I was like 16 years old. They'd give me tips. But the 2 older stylists both had the names Jennifer, and they would steal my tips and they would take them from me. It was very mean. And so the owner said, well, you're going to have to change your name. And they wanted to call me Raven. And I was like, no. And how I did my makeup back then, I had these 3 dots under my eye. It was a joke I had with friends in high school. And so someone at high school was like, oh, what do you have? A pepper shaker on your eye. Okay, I'll go with Pepper. So I had to report to the salon of my name change will officially be Pepper. And in that time without social media, that actually, oh, I'm looking for Pepper. And this was, I grew up outside of Philadelphia in Delaware after we moved from New York. And so it was a small area. So if they looked for Pepper in the salon, it was very easy to find. So it stuck.
That's an incredible story. I'm surprised I hadn't asked you sooner. I love that
Yeah.
story.
Well, and then in graduate school, I was going back to Jennifer to be more formal and academic. But all my cohort members in grad school were like, you're about to be Dr. Pepper, and now you want to change your name? Absolutely not. So it continued to stick.
All right. I love it. Thanks again for being such a great guest, and we'll have you back. I'm sure you and I will be talking well before that. And again, a virtual round of applause. Give her a final shout out here. Thank you again, Dr.
Thank you.
Pepper.
Thank you all so much.
All right. Everybody, we will see you next week. We'll have another great episode. And I'm still thinking about what we just spoke about, and I probably will all day. So all the best to the rest of you. And thanks for joining us, whether it is live, our podcast, or YouTube.